Okay. Episode 2, Tokyo Revengers. I hope you guys are watching this series. I'm actually finding it to be very interesting. So, last week we left off where Takemichi, which is the main character in this series, went back into the future, met with Naoto. See, I'm getting their names right because I took time to learn everybody's name. And Naoto showed up in his hospital bed and begged him to help save his sister. Well, Naoto takes Takemichi back to his apartment, and they basically, for several days, talk about what happened to cause his sister to die. And they're going over the history of this Manji Gang, the one that was responsible for his sister's death. And Naoto is basically putting as much information into Takemichi's head about the present day and the gang as much as he possibly can to stop them in the past. And then they talk about how they can go back into time again. And Naoto is very perceptive and says, you came back to the present once you shook hands with me, so all you gotta do is shake hands with me again. And they do so, and he goes back into the past. And if you look over at this screenshot over here, he starts into a fight. So one of my questions about this series last week was, every time you go back in time, do you go back to the first start point, or is there another one? And it seems it's neither of those things. It seems like it's a one-to-one with the present day. So if you go back to the present day and you wait 3 days, then when you go back in time, you'll go 3 days past where you went the first time. That's how I interpret that. So if you went back in the future and waited 2 weeks, same thing. You go back in time, it'd be 2 weeks ahead of the time where you were before. So he literally jumps back in time into a fight and gets knocked out in one hit. And there's this big fight club going on with the lower levels of this Manji Gang that Takemichi's crew was forced to join because their gang got destroyed by this gang and got absorbed, and they're basically minions for them now. And so after this fight, there's apparently people that had money on Takemichi, and they lost a bunch of money. So after the fight, he tries to think a way out of this, and he asks if he can be introduced to the head of the Manji Gang and all of the current, I guess you call it upperclassmen. They're like high schoolers, but they're high enough in the gang that run these things. Turn on him and they beat him bloody for hours. So much that I think it's his left leg is it looks like it's been sprained due to the amount of damage they took. And at this moment, they take off, and at this moment we get to see a little a bit of what happened to Takemichi the first time around in time, where he ran away and he was considering that again. So I started to think about how this story is going to go, and what they're trying to do to sell the story is that Takemichi is doing this to save the life of somebody else. But I also think what's happening here is Takemichi is doing this to save his own life, because what happened to him is he ran away from everything. He became risk averse. He let anybody walk all over him. He got crappy jobs for it. He didn't move up in life. He didn't have anybody in his life because he was too afraid to do anything that would consider a risk. And sometimes having a friendship is a risk. Sometimes having a relationship is a risk. So he became lame. And so to me, this manga, just by watching 2 episodes of the anime, I think it's going to be more or less the main driver will be to save the girl, but the underlying premise will be to save him to become something better than he was before. So he does realize that, and he goes and visits the Hina, the girl, again, and she kind of gives him hope once again, and he takes off, and he starts to devise a plan on how he's going to infiltrate this gang. So he goes back to the fight club the next day with his friends, and before he doesn't really say anything at first, but one of his friends, who's much weaker than him, is going to be forced to fight, and he's just going to get demolished. And when the friend goes up to fight, he basically screams and starts to say, he starts coming down. He gets a lot of confidence, and he challenges the main leader of this fight club to a fight. And then that's where the episode ends. So he'd already taken heavy damage the previous day, and I can assume that his I guess you could call it his persona from the past, had to know how to fight, even though his future self was much weaker and much scareder. Is that a word? So he just challenged somebody who's clearly going to be a much better fighter than him. So that's where the episode ends. But next week it's going to be him versus this guy, and this is how he's going to use this dude as a jumping platform to get up into the ranks of this gang, the Manji Gang, to stop two individuals from basically becoming friends. Is how I got it. So the gang doesn't get big enough to get to the point where they end up killing Hinata, and it was Naoto before he was warned. So next week it's going to be him versus this gang leader, and I'm based on what I've seen so far, I don't know how he's going to be able to do it, but it's possible that Takemichi knows how to fight, but doesn't have the willpower, or he gets nervous or scared, and he just ends up losing. We'll see. Maybe he gets over that and he's able to actually hang in there from also being damaged from the previous day. Because in the scene when he challenges the gang leader, he's still beaten up from the day prior. So it's going to be an interesting fight. But that was this week's episode. So we got confirmation on how time travel works. You have to shake hands with Naoto. We got confirmation on how time flows after you go back in time. So time flows 1-to-1 from the present and the future is how I look at it. But things that probably won't be answered for a long time is who started this time leap, because somebody pushed him off the train tracks in front of a train, which started this whole deal. That, I would imagine, that's going to be something that's going to be held until the end of the series, or very close to the end of the series, on how that started. Or they'll never explain it at all. But how the time leap power came to be is going to be something that's going to be of great speculation to me. So, because it's basically a crime gang drama mixed with this time travel, kind of like that movie Looper. Remember, if you ever seen that movie Looper, the premise is that these mafioso types send people who work for them into the past with gold, and then their younger selves have to kill them and take the gold, so they're killing their older selves for money. It's a really interesting interesting concept where you're doing this like mafioso crime drama thing, but with these sci-fi elements. I like it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week on episode 3. So if you haven't checked out Tokyo Revengers, do check it out. It is on Crunchyroll. I don't know what day it's simulcast on. I think it's Friday, maybe Saturday. I watch all my anime in the same day, which is usually Sunday. So I don't know exactly what day it comes out, but yeah. So that's my coverage this week. I'm actually really satisfied with this week's manga. I do read other things too, like Dr. Stone. I just don't really have anything I want to talk about, but that hit a pretty interesting point this week. That was I think it's coming into its final arc. I think I've said that before, but I need to start reading Jujutsu Kaisen 2 now that the series is over and catch up where it was. But yeah, we'll see. But that's all I got this week. So for all you here, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Leave a comment. Let's talk more about manga. That's all I got. So I hope you guys all have a good one. Peace.